Welcome to our daily Bible study. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves. We're going to come to the final installment of the 13th series, Constructing and Deconstructing Habits. Today, part 7, a thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Again, before we can understand how to deconstruct, we have to understand that there is a construction process that has already taken place. And in this construction process, we have developed the mind and developed thought processes wherein we have consistently built and lifted these thoughts above all other thoughts. We've lifted these objectives above all other objectives, and these objectives become intentions because they are thoughts that bring visualization, and the visualization then brings about a desire to achieve an objective because this objective appears to be valuable and it appears to be beneficial. And so what takes place is we lift these thoughts. We are continually adding to these thoughts until these thoughts become interconnected and they become what we call neural pathways. The neural pathways link to other neurons, and therefore the thoughts become much easier to perceive, conceive, and continue on. When he speaks of these, again, imaginations, the imaginations literally are logismos, and they are the act of your computation. It is your thought processes. They are your logical points of view. They are how you are thinking critically. And remember, critical thinking can be poor, it can be good, it can be superb. And so how you and your perspective formulate what's important and formulate what it is you desire, they become the motivating factors. And these motivating factors, once they begin to become full-grown pathways, it moves you to action. Not only are you moved to action, but you also start moving to find those things that will solidify your reasoning, those things that will bring to you an understanding and a validation of what you're doing. And so there must first be a construction of a computation. You bring concepts, and you bring these concepts together, and you start producing conceptualized ideas, those things that now become a part of your behavior. And so as you lift these up, they become the high things. They become the elevated things, the things that you desire to achieve, irregardless of the will of God, the will of others, or what it may lead to. Whatever the objective is, that's what becomes important to you. And so they become exalted things, high things, that you lift up in their order of importance, that you lift up in the significance of their value. And so these things, what they do, they exalt themselves, they become greater than the knowledge of God. When we talk about the knowledge of God, again, it is the Gnosis. Gnosis is the knowledge of a special kind, or a special kind, relatively high character. And so it deals with knowing, knowledge, science, the scientia, the understanding of God's desire for us, the understanding of God's relationship with us, the understanding of the laws and the precepts that God has set forth. And so what happens? You begin to consistently think. You consistently use your logical capacity, and you organize thoughts, and they become the most pertinent thoughts. And those thoughts you lift up to the point where they go beyond the gnosis of God. They go beyond the special knowledge or the kind of knowledge that leads you into a relationship with God. And what happens, instead of you being in control of them, they now bring you into captivity and they begin to control you. This term, captivity, is a word, ahikmalatizo, and it means to make captive, to lead away, and to bring into captivity. And so the thoughts that you set into motion, they then begin to infiltrate your system, the system of your mind, the system of your body. They become etched deep within your unconscious mind. And the unconscious mind, which is you, your volition. Remember, some believe that the volition is the soul of soul. In other words, it is the living aspect that negotiates and enables and navigates through the intelligence and through the emotive stance. And so you, your volition, you now begin to lift up and open the gates of the unconscious mind, and those thoughts are ejected into the subconscious, the consciousness, and you keep considering them. And then parts of your brain will keep focusing on them, and they will give you subtle emanations that will lead you to investigate further, to find individuals who have the same position, to look for textbooks and information that will again validate your position. And so you create a cycle, and the cycle then takes on a life of its own, and it captivates you. It locks you into a cyclical repetition, a cycle that keeps repeating. The more you think about it, the more your brain urges you to think about it. And the more you accept the prompting of the brain, the more you think about it and analyze it and give it more pertinence. And the more you give it more pertinence, the more it keeps engaging you to think and engaging the will to think. And so the cycle is, you do it, the brain gives you more reasons to do it. And so the mind accepts the reasons and starts investigating and starts moving towards the things that will empower the thought processes, because the reasons become valid. And so what happens, your thoughts make a captive out of you, and the thoughts become behavior processes, behavioral patterns. They become behaviors that now you put on autopilot, and you don't have to do much thinking, because they are now habits that you can do with your eyes closed. You have just programmed yourself, and that programming will remain until you do the antithesis of what you did to establish the programming. This is where the scripture comes in at 2 Corinthians 10 and 5. Now you have to throw down, you have to cast down these imaginations, these logismos, these computations. You have to observe, what have they been causing you to do? What have they caused you to feel? Then you have to examine them, analyze them, deconstruct them, while you're constructing something to take its place. You cannot have a habit that's full-blown and expect to get an antithesis of the habit while that habit is still controlling you. When we are trying to break down a habit by just simply rethinking and not dismantling the habit, then typically the mind will shut down with anything that opposes the habit that you have constructed. I am so sorry. We are out of time. I thank you for joining us and hope to see you again. This has been our daily Bible study. the conclusion of the 13th series, Constructing and Deconstructing Habits. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves. God bless you.